Hi everybody, welcome to our webinar workshop this evening. Some of you we picked start accidentally a few minutes ago, so some of you have been waiting very patiently for us to start, so thank you very much for joining us. If you would like to add into the chat at the bottom, let us know where you're joining from. Hello, it's always lovely to work out where everybody is. It's often got people joining from all over the world, which is very exciting. So thank you very much for joining us this evening. I've seen, I'm sure, some of your names popping up already, so some of you will know me, but I'm Claire from Cock Pens, and our workshop this evening will be led by the marvellous Helen Carter, who I'll be handing over to in just a minute. Helen's going to be immersing us in the world of botanicals using Derwent pencils. We'll come on to that in a moment. We have created a bundle to go with the workshop, so for those of you that have that, or you've got products to hand, grab what you can. You'll be able to follow along with Helen, and also just feel free to use whatever you have, and just watch and listen if you haven't got materials to hand, because I'm sure it's going to be a very relaxing hour as well. Just a little bit of housekeeping from me as usual. So we anticipate the session's going to last for about an hour, so please get comfy. We'll see how we go. We'll interrupt gently with questions as we go through. The session is being recorded, and we will make the recording available later this week, might be early next week. We'll see how quickly we can get it turned around. So if you do miss anything, you will have the chance to take another look. All cameras and sound are switched off for the duration of the session, so don't worry if you're making a noise or you've got a weird drawing face. We can't see you, but if you do have any questions, you can use the chat function. So there's a chat function at the bottom of your screen, and there's also a Q&A. So I can see you're all popping up in chat already, so you've got this. Please ask any of your questions in there. Charlotte and Justine from Derwent are also online as well, so they're going to help me answer questions, so you may see replies from some of us. And as I mentioned, we will try and gently interrupt Helen as we go through with your questions as they pop up. So without further ado, Helen, if you are ready,
I'm ready.
I'm gonna hand over to you. So perhaps you'd like to start us off with a bit of an introduction and where your love for coloured pencils came from.
Sure. Thank you very much. My name is Helen. I live in Winchester in Hampshire, and I started drawing when I was very, very little, but I went on and did a very non-art career in local government. Fast forward to 2017, I think it was, and I left there. It was the right time to go, and I started drawing again with graphite, and reminded myself on how pleasurable art and creativity was. And it was a very short step from graphite to colour pencils, so it was an easy move for me. I'm very much drawn to realism and very fine detail. I went to art college when I was in my teens, and did a lot of very technical drawing, illustrations there, and that's what I studied. But since moving away from art and then coming back to it much later in life, I really choose anything that's really colourful and interesting, and quite close-up stuff I like as well. Botanicals is a recent thing for me. I really started my interest in that last year, or just during lockdown, and sort of headed out in my allotted hours out of the house with my camera, took some local photographs, and brought them home and drew them, and loved it, absolutely loved it. So yeah, and then last year Derwent very kindly invited me to be an ambassador with them, and that's been really rewarding, and I've had lots of opportunities to play with lots of different pencils, which has been great. I'm slowly taking over my lounge. As you can see, I'm in the lounge, that's where I work.
My first question, do you know how many pencils you own? How expansive is the collection getting?
It is pretty obnoxious.
Good word.
I think I've been sent a few recently, but so I'm heading towards, I don't really want to tell you.
I think confessions of a pencil artist, it's absolutely fine. This is a safe space. It's just you and I having a chat.
Well, okay, I'll give you a number. It starts with a 1, but it might now be a 2, and it's got 3 figures after it.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's
Impressive.
bad.
Wow. Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Amazing. I think you're setting a challenge for
and it's
everybody.
not. I really don't do it. Don't do it. You don't need that many pencils. I don't use them all. I probably use maybe 30 very, very regularly. Even in my detailed work, it's about 30 pencils that I would really say they're the ones that I want. So yeah.
I think you're probably in a good space, because there's people going, yeah, let's go with that. That's good. That's
Really.
variety. So I think, yeah, it's all good. So Helen, would you like to start to talk a little bit about the products that you're going to use? Would you like me to switch the camera over
Perfect
for
timing.
that part? Shall I do that now?
Let's have a look.
Okay, let's do that. There we go.
Okay, this is the drawing that we're going to be doing this evening. Not all of that, because that's about 2.5 hours work. But today, using the Colour Soft and Pro Colour pencils, they work beautifully in combination. You can do all of this in about 2.5 hours, and that's what it took me. I was working quite swiftly, but that's 2.5 hours work. Let me just bring that up, and just to show that it is actually a drawing.
That is amazing.
Some people might not believe me, but yeah, so that is. So today, this is actually as far, I think, as we'll get. I'll hopefully get those 3 done. This is another one that I did yesterday, just to get something to show you. And the Pro Colour pencils and the Colour Soft, as I said, work really, really nicely together. Colour Soft, if you haven't used them before, let's just bring that into shot. They're beautifully soft. They do, if you use them like this, very, very on their edge, they will crumble a little bit on the tip if you've got them very sharp. So don't put too much pressure down. Really, as far as you need to go is about that much. So if this is the hardest and this is your lightest, that you can barely see it, then go somewhere in the middle. Okay, so don't really, really hammer that hard today. You don't need to do it that hard. Sorry, that was just going to say, those Colour Soft are going to give us a really quick lay down, because they're so nice and soft. You can really make a lovely even tone very, very quickly with those. The Pro Colour, they are much, much harder by comparison. If I give that a press, you can see there's nothing breaking off the tip of that. That one's not massively sharp, but if I just change it to this one, oh no, I broke the tip. See, I had that on a real end angle, and that's why that happened. But ordinarily, they don't tend to break. That was very, very sharp. So give that a real press, and
you're really giving that some pressure there.
Really hard, and the harder you press, the further upright you need to hold your pencil. So don't be like me and hold it very, very on the angle, but upright is much better. So yeah, those pencils are nice and hard. They'll get you some lovely, lovely detail over the top of the Colour Soft. So that's those. I just wanted to quickly introduce these beauties. These are an absolute gift. They really are. For those people who are aware of odorless mineral spirits, just imagine that this is a pen version of it. I'm not entirely sure what's inside. It might be rubbing alcohol. I really don't know. But there's barely any smell from this. In fact, it's actually quite pleasant. But we're going to be using these today just to blend out what we're working on. And you can get a lovely flat bit of shading with those. I recommend, if you do have these, if you've bought the bundle, after each colour, give them a little wipe, just so that they return. They'll stain a bit on the end, but give them a little wipe just so that they're done. But you can see that that has blended in really nicely from, you know, quite a rough lay down. And you can blend out these as well really beautifully. The Pro Colours go down really nicely, actually.
So remind me, which
Yeah,
is so the colour soft is the softer, so use gently, and the
yeah,
pro colour we can apply a bit more pressure.
you can. Yes. So yeah,
Yeah.
but do hold your pencil a little more vertically. Not don't do what I just did and knock the tip off.
A very
So
sharp point.
the paper I'm using today is this Derwent watercolor paper. As it says here, it's super smooth surface, perfect for pencils. I really can't extol the virtues of this enough. It is really smooth. There's hardly any texture to it. It's very similar to a Bristol, but it is a watercolor paper, so it will accept water media. But it's a really nice paper. It's not completely white, but it's ever so gently off-white, and it's one of my favorites. I love it. I always have a piece beside me when I work just to swatch on, because I always forget what color it's actually going to look like on the paper that I'm using. Other things I've got.
Sorry,
yes.
Helen, we've already got questions coming in, so just
Go ahead.
just so first thing, going back to the start, do you have favorites? You said you had about 30 favorites. Is there anything particular in your favorite color pencil collection that you'd like to share, or is it like talking about your favorite children? I don't know.
Let's pick a favorite child. The Derwent Light Fast are probably my absolute favorite pencils. They just make everything so much easier. They are creamy yet hard. They go down beautifully. They blend beautifully. They layer amazingly well, and they've got such a range of colors that I just, oh, they're yummy. Loads and loads of wonderful purples in there too. And of course, as a professional artist, you know, they are light fast, which is a real bonus for me when I'm doing pet portraits, for example. My favorite color in those is possibly the Mars Violet. That's just, I don't know, it changes depending on what I'm working on, but that's a really great shadow color. It's a lovely warm grey violet. It's beautiful. Chromaflow is another one of my favorites. I think they are hugely fun and beautifully colorful. I can't get enough of those at the moment for relaxation and just enjoyment of coloring in, you know, because I do adult coloring as well. They are just wonderful pencils to use. I love them.
Amazing. And I think
yeah.
I'm allowed to say we're hoping to have a Chromaflow workshop with you next month, but more on that to come.
Yes.
So we'll work on that and share that with everybody.
Yes. Any more questions?
And yeah, there are. So that many pencil crayons, this may have never happened when you have this many pencils. Have you been in a situation where you finished one completely and then you can't get the color again? It's changed, it's run out. I can't imagine if you've got that many pencils that you get to the end of one color that often.
Most of the pencils that I have can be purchased open stock. In fact, all of the pencils I have can be purchased open stock. So I can usually get the same color back again. Occasionally a color will ever so slightly change, but I don't really worry too much about the colors I'm using. So it sounds a bit strange, but I'm really worried. I'm really just working with the tone of the piece that I work with, especially again with realism, which is where my focus is. I'm really interested in making sure that all of the contrast is right and the tones are right. It really doesn't matter too much if the color is ever so slightly off. If I finish a pencil in the middle of a drawing, I have always got the pencil extenders. I've got about 100 of them as well.
Yeah, good plan. And quite a lot of interest in the blenders. And what else can you use with the blender?
What do you mean? What else can you use with it?
What other materials does it work across the whole range in terms of color pencils? How else do you use the blender in your work?
I really only use them with colored pencil, but they work with almost, I think, pretty much every color pencil that I've used them with. They'll work to some degree. And it really doesn't matter too much on the laydown. The more pigment you put down, the easier they are to use. So I just think that they're such a fantastic thing. The only thing I can't use them on is film. I use drafting film sometimes, and they work as an eraser on drafting film. So if you didn't know that, go and try it. It's quite a shock.
And one last question about the blender pens and how they compare to stumps.
Oh, the stump is very different. Let's have a show you here. So the stump, if I just put down not too hard a layer here, and then, so the stump will work, but you have to layer it up. So the stump requires a light layer, and then a rub, and then another light layer, and then a rub again. So if you're trying to do this dry, it's all about layering up very, very slowly. Colour pencils are really slow medium to work with, whereas the blender pen, you just come straight in, and it will kind of melt the binder and remove most of your lines. If you have them very, very kind of spread out like this, then the blender pen is going to really struggle. But the closer you have and the more pigment you have down, the blender pen works really, really beautifully.
And have you ever noticed that having any impact on the longevity of the artwork? I think it probably comes back to what's in the blender pen to make it work.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think, I haven't been alive long enough to check. But
update on that in a few years' time.
I haven't noticed anything, in the past few years that it's affected anything. But I've been using them for about 18 months, but I don't tend to use them in my coloured pencil portraits for clients. I tend to use the very slow layering method, but for my own pieces, I will use them.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Someone's asking if you can use cheap vodka and a paintbrush for blending, like you can with pastels.
I've no idea.
No,
I think that most pencils will, to some degree, move. The pigment will move if you wet it. So you can, you can use baby oil, but that will discolor your paper. Vodka, I don't know. I do know that you can use alcohol markers, so that may be the same sort of thing, because it, again, that kind of has an alcohol base in it. But I wouldn't. I would stick with these because that's what they're made for.
Brilliant.
Okay, so shall I make a bit of a start?
Yes, do.
I'm just going to give that a sharpen. I'm using a regular sharpener here for the Colour Soft because they prefer a shorter tip. So what I want to do now is just turn over here, and this is my line drawing. I made a printout of my line drawing. I traced it, but I only actually think we can do the 3 colours today. So the 3 colours, the 3 main petals today. So without further ado, let's get going. I'll try to remember to kind of talk about what colour I'm using as I'm doing it. So I'm taking the white, no, I'm not. First of all, I've got to remember to use this. So this is a dotting tool. It's something I use for indenting. Just a quick kind of illustration of what that does, which you won't probably be able to see, but I'm really just doing little U shapes and pressing quite hard. And really all I want is a few kind of indents where there is some highlights, and pulling out some highlights on those leaves. So you can see, if you look at the reference, there's some veins going through, and really all I want to do is just highlight that. Nice thing to do here is just to kind of make some dots as well, and some of that will get covered up with the blender pen eventually. Because it would be wet, the blender pen will move some of the pigment into these dots, so they won't necessarily stay perfectly clear, but as an example of what you can do with these things, I thought I would just quickly show you. So if I just do a quick one here, you really don't need to be particularly specific with this. It's really just illustrating where it's going to go and providing a little tiny bit of a highlight. Let's just give those a nice little indent, because when you put your pencil over it, it's going to skim right across the top. The pencil won't go into the indents if you press hard enough. You do have to press quite hard, but that's probably enough just for this. Just want to do those lines. Okay, so now I'm going to take my white pencil, which is the Colour Soft, and in little oval motions, not pressing too hard, but going over and over and over, it's just going to give the top kind of crescent of the center of those flowers, a little going over with the white. Now what that's going to do, it's kind of going to give us a bit of a resist, not much, but enough, just so that if you when we come to actually put some color over it, it's not going to go over these quite as easily as if it was on the paper. It's just the paper itself. So wherever you see a really, really bright area in the center and on the end of those little, what are they, stamens, I think, on the end of those little stamens, just put your white in. I'm going to add some white here before I forget as well. You can see I'm going pretty fast because we haven't got a huge amount of time. But we'll see how far we get. And when we use the blender pen, this is all going to blend in really nicely. And you won't have to worry too much. Right, so don't worry too much if you're following along and actually working with me. Just a rough guide as to where they are, where those really pale areas are. Okay, now we're going to start with the centers. We're going to get our, where is it? We're going to get the lime green, and again in little ovals, overlapping, working under that crescent. Add that lime green, and going to add that lime green all the way through the bottom end of this as well. Same here, we've got the crescent that's going in across there, and we're going to end up getting slightly darker as we go further down. And I want to, as you can see, just fairly swiftly add that colour. Doesn't have to be perfect, definitely doesn't have to be perfect. No one is going to know if it doesn't look exactly like your reference. Okay, then that's enough for that, really. We're going to take the olive green, which is the Pro colour, and we are going to draw some lines, just like that. And then we can see, and then wherever you see a darker shadow, just put that shape in. So I can see on here, there's quite a dark shape, like a triangle here, and a little line next to it. And then underneath the top of that, there's a little shadow where it's overlapping. And that's enough on that one. Maybe just a tiny bit here. And then in here, we want to do the same underneath. Draw some lines. And then look for those bigger areas that kind of create the shapes that you're looking for. So we know that these are little kind of fronds that are coming up looking like that. So let's draw what we see. Oh, it's the second time I did that. It's my fault. Pressed too hard.
It's going to be third time lucky before we get to the end, I'm predicting.
Oh, yeah, quite possibly. Right, here we go. And then up here, draw some lines in. Now, that one's a lot lighter, so don't have to work quite so hard. And then where does the end of that go? It's kind of there. Delineate the end of the top kind of lighter area with this. And then just put that little kind of Xy shape on the top. And now I'm going to get the cedar green and create a little, just going over the top very, very gently with the Pro Colour cedar green, just creating that shadow on the top there. Not too hard. There's a little bit of a shadow there, a little bit of space there. And same here, giving that some colour. This one's a bit darker. And then up here too, darker at the top, softer at the bottom. And then ever such a slight shadow there. And we've got 1, 2, 3, little one there, little one there, little one there. And then, yeah, so that's probably all we need for that bit. Now, we're pretty much done with those. Let me just bring that up. So you can see it's pretty rough and ready, but genuinely, once the rest of it goes in, you're not going to see it. It only looks like that right now because we've got nothing else to compare it to. I'm going to move now to the leaves, and we'll start on this lovely one here. And I'm taking the bright purple and I'm working around the edges. So I'm just going to do, not very hard, but I'm just adding some pigment to the outside edge. And then layering that up a little bit before moving on to the next bit. So most of these flowers have this dark edge, and you can see I'm really not being particularly precious about where it goes. I'm just trying to look at where there's a darker area or where there's a tone that I want to achieve. And I am kind of trying now to make it go in the direction of the petal, so you can see what I'm attempting to do there, I think. And so this little line here has got a piece of petal behind, which I'm making dark so that it looks like it's behind. And then probably do, it's got like a little line there. My eye, you can't see, but my eyes are going backwards and forwards to the reference image, which is quite a poor photograph that I printed out on my very old machine. But it's enough. You don't need a huge amount. So that's all you need for that. Let's finish, go around to this one. Just picking up the edges. Like so. Going in the direction of the flower. And it's a little bit darker down in there. Perfect. Right, let's do this one. Definitely darker under there, so I'll give it a bit more welly. What's the technical term that is?
I like those technical terms. They're universal.
Yeah, they are. Give it some welly. Again, we're looking to, rather than scribbling all over, I am sort of making a bit of an effort to go in the direction of travel, as I would say, which for me that means which way is the thing pointing. So it's pointing left to right on my bit of paper, right? So I just want to darken those edges up. Lovely, lovely bit of purple. Don't go too dark around here because it's quite a light petal and we have a different color we can use on there. So we're going to blend on the page. And then just this last one.
I'm just noticing, Helen, that you're holding your, I naturally hold my pencil quite close to the bottom, and you're actually just adjusting your grip a little bit depending on how what you're doing.
Absolutely.
I find that massively helps with the control.
Yes, if you hold it really far down, I have a very heavy hand, as I've shown you twice already. And the further down I press, the further down I hold, the harder I end up pressing. So
okay, that's interesting. Yeah.
I do prefer to hold my pencils far back while I'm getting the feel of it, while I'm getting comfortable and, you know, finding my way. It may be that if I was at this for many hours, I would get tired and my grip would go further down the page, further down the pencil. Right, I'm now going to go for the deep fuchsia colour soft, because there's a lot of that lovely fuchsia colour in and around. So I'm really just dotting that in where I want some more of a pink shift to the colour. So definitely on this edge, definitely in this little thing here. And can you see with that indenting how the pencil is not going into the divot that I've created? So that's the beauty of indenting. It's great for whiskers, so
you might need to explain the whiskers reference.
The whiskers reference, any pet portrait artists, or if you're trying to draw anything with fur or hair, you can indent the page at the start, like we did, and that will protect your white, your highlights. It's a really useful thing to know about and to have a practice with. Very, very good little bit of trickery, that is. Took me about a year to kind of really understand what people were talking about when they said, oh, we're going to indent the page. And I'm thinking, what on earth? Why would you do that? But now I understand. Right, so we're just adding that. Now I'm going to go in with the heather in the Pro colour, very lightly, and I'm just going to give these edges somewhere to blend into, because on the reference it's quite light in that center bit, but not as wide as I've got it. So we can just bring those in a little bit. This one can be a little darker. This one definitely. Now that I've got a few layers on, I can afford to be a little bit more scribbly. I'm using the side of this pencil so that I'm laying down more pigment more quickly, and not creating sharp lines. When you're blending, you don't really want sharp lines. And this is a really pale colour, which is only just coming out on the screen. I can see it. Right.
Yeah, we can see it just about.
Yeah. Now I'm going to, this is all about layering up your colours before you blend. This is Geranium Lake. This is the Pro colour again. I want some red. Just a touch. I'm not using a great deal of pressure. This is just I'm going to say pinkify the areas which are very, very purpley blue at the moment. So in through here is a little bit pinky. See that there? That's a little too scribbly. And I know because it's going to not blend terribly well. So this is my kneaded eraser. It's a new one. So it looks like blue tack. It isn't blue tack. It's a kneaded eraser. Don't use blue tack because it can leave marks on your page. And all you do is you just make a little kind of nodule and then dot out where you want it to go. It won't erase it completely, but it will just take out some of the pigment off the top, very top layer. So you can afford to be, you can then go back in afterwards, right? Now, I just want now to get my Primrose Yellow Pro Colour, and I'm adding a very gentle, what I would call a hue shift. I can add a bit more to that, yeah. Just to add a little bit of yellow into that leaf, that petal, just to give it a little bit extra dimension. I can't really see much of it on the reference photo, but I kind of feel like it should be there, if you know what I mean. So this is the artistic bit coming out, I think.
Helen, can you just pull your reference picture over a little bit to show everyone? I think some people have had that on the email, but perhaps not everybody has got that.
Let me move that to
that's
there.
Brilliant. Yeah, I think that would help. Yeah, lovely.
Okay, and then I'll put my pencil here. Yeah, they'll end up all over it probably. Right, it's blender pen time. So just make sure it's clean. Yes, it is. Now I'm going to work from the dark area into the light area. So I'll start on this one down here and move in the direction of travel quite quickly, using it just like a pencil, and then pulling that back in this way. You can see already, I'll just show you what I'm doing here. Every now and then just give it a clean, because otherwise you end up with a bit too much pigment on it. And then once you've done that first pass, you can afford to be a little more blendy with it and move that pigment around a bit more. There is a smaller one. I like this thick boy.
That instantly,
absolutely
impact, doesn't it?
Yeah, it makes it look much more like a painting, don't you think?
Yes, absolutely. And I can see, it's sort of quite forgiving as well of what you've done so far then as well.
Yes, it really enables you to work a little quicker, but also create this beautiful painterly kind of effect with your color pencils, because color pencils, you're using not even a millimeter wide point, so it's very easy to get very, very stuck on drawing things very precisely, and this gives you such a way out of that. It's so nice,
helping the coverage as well in that sense.
Yes, yeah, moving the pigment around really nicely. You can scribble it straight away. I wouldn't recommend, only because if you haven't put enough pigment down, like I haven't in a few of these areas, it will still show some of the lines. So you do have to be a little bit careful. But the other beauty about this is that you can do this multiple times, so long as you've got a paper that will accept a wet medium, like this watercolor paper. You can go back in and do it again and again. Now, you would just go over it, give it a minute to dry. If you wanted to go back over, it doesn't take too long, provided that you haven't saturated the paper. It actually doesn't take too long to dry, but for what time is it? It's 22. So we'll go off and just maybe start this second one to give this a minute to dry.
Lovely.
But you can see already that that's looking almost like watercolor. So let's just move that aside and go back and have a play again, and pick up the bright purple. Just going to look at my reference. Where am I? Here. So let's do this one and this one, because they're quite nice ones. So pick up the bright purple, which is the darker of the purpley magenta-y colours. Around the edge, nice dark line on the edge. Bring that shading in, really not worried too much about where it is. A kind of a line there. Pull that down. Lovely. So it really doesn't take much to make these work. That's just guidelines to me. We're going to darken those up in a sec. Nice dark line here. And then got a bit of a line going on there as well. So yeah, you can see really, really rough, not really precise. And the real beauty of these colour soft is look how quick they're going in. You know, they really are making light work of this.
I think you're also making it look quite easy, Helen, but yeah.
Well, I'm hoping that people will have a go and see that actually this method isn't hard. It isn't tricky. If you want to go for photorealism, and if that's your thing, go for it. You know, it's my thing. I love it.
Yeah.
But there are times when I don't want to spend 40 hours working on a piece. I just want to relax and enjoy my Sunday afternoon with a drawing or a colouring page or whatever. And this is just a brilliant way of doing that. Deep fuchsia, get some fuchsia-y colours going on in here. Take it round the edge, round the back there, through the centre, off the edge. I'm not sure we're going to get to that last one, I'm afraid, but and then a little bit of this heather again. Bring that
lovely
through.
colour, that.
This heather is really nice. It's ever so pale, but it goes down beautifully. The more you layer these pro colours, the more intense the colours get. They're really beautiful.
Oh, and I've just seen a question from earlier actually that I missed. But have you ever used colour blending powders? Somebody's asked.
No, that's on my list of things to try for sure. I have seen it. I've seen it in operation, and I thought it was really, really intriguing. I haven't, no.
So if anyone has any recommendations, pop them into the chat and I'll share them with Helen afterwards.
Thank you. Right, blender pen time. So let's watch this again. Look at that. It's just amazing. Really brings out the best in these pencils. Beautiful work. So yeah, I really hope that it's just showing that it can be a quicker medium, and this is going to give you the opportunity to really put these pencils to the test, and also your creativity too, to some degree, because you don't have to be all very massively precise. And particularly with botanicals, it doesn't, you know, you've got plenty of opportunity to go your own way with it. It doesn't have to be absolutely exact. So I'm going to move back to this one, and I'm going to dig out the burnt carmine, and I'm going to put in some of these. Mike's got my little, I'm going to put.
Oh, good sound, strong sound.
That's this thing. That's the super point helical sharpener. This is a pro color, so without worrying too much, I can put a little pressure down. So see where I'm going here. So what I'm doing is I'm just defining some of the areas with this burnt carmine.
So you're almost putting back in some of the lines that you blended through.
Exactly.
More precisely, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, much more precisely. And the other thing you can do at this juncture is put the little veins on as well. So we'll come to that in just a second. But really all I'm doing is, there are some vague shapes that I can see that need to be more defined. So I'm just going to put those darker areas in, not worrying too much about where they are, just so long as they're in the sort of general area. And with this one, if you did indent your paper, make a decision on whether you're going to put your highlight on the top or underneath the dark line. Sorry, where you're going to put your dark line. Is it going to be on top of your highlight above or below it? And make sure that you stick to that, because otherwise your light reference will be inconsistent. Right, and a little bit darker here, and definitely some depth going in there, and definitely all around there. So give it a little wiggle, because we've got no straight edges. Don't really want any straight edges in florals. Lovely and quick. I think just that little thingy in there. Right, so all I'm going to do with this is make some, do I want it with that one? No, I actually want it with the bright purple Pro Color, Color Soft. So I'm just going to really, properly lightly, like this, hardly touching the paper. It's just kind of create some trees. I can't really explain it any other way, but with each line that you make a line break off from it, you know, so that it looks like veins that are coming out. You don't have to put them everywhere, but if you have a look at your reference, your inspiration image, you'll see a few of these are more defined than others, and just pop those in. It will just make that a little bit more real. And they go off at odd angles. And it's nice and organic. And you're making little tree shapes with them, like so. And that already has made a massive difference to the detail that we've got going on in this piece.
And how do you decide on that level of detail? Just using that reference image constantly, or do you sometimes not fully copy that image, deviate?
I'm not really looking at the reference at all at the moment. I just know that well, I suppose I am. I'm looking here and I can see that there's some shapes here that are more obvious than any shapes down there. So I'll make some lines appear in this location because that's kind of where they are. But as to where the lines are going, really, I'm just making tree shapes. So nothing that's specifically off the reference. I can see that they're going that way on the reference, but I'm not really looking as to where exactly they're starting from or finishing.
And do you always use a reference image?
Yeah.
When you do with botanicals? I
do. I don't know enough about, because I've really only started doing it over the last sort of 18 months, couple of years. I don't know enough about their structure to make those decisions. I feel comfortable kind of once I've been working on a piece to, you know, put things like these little lines in to make it look okay. But I would always use a reference for the general shape and the outlines of a flower, or a border piece of garden or whatever. Lovely. So if you're going to finish off sorry, I'll put that in English, shall I? If you're
you're concentrating, it's okay.
Yeah, so I'm multitasking here. The flower that's the most in focus has the most detail. So this one at the back and this leaf here, this petal here, they really don't need all of these vein details in it. It's really just this flower and that leaf and probably this leaf are the ones that are the most in focus, that you would need to put this level of detail on. Because if you add too much detail to things that are in the background, you're going to bring them to the foreground and it's going to compete. You're going to have coloured them as though they are in the background and given them the shading for them to be in the background, but you would have added too much detail and it would look like it should be a foreground piece and it would look a little bit wrong.
That's a great tip, because I would just keep going.
Yep, no, definitely don't need it. Again, look at the reference. You can't see that amount of detail that you can see here.
Yes.
You can't see it in those ones at the back. And so let's just now, I'm going to dig my black out. I know this is a bold move. Go back over here. So we're finished with the blender pen. We're going to just dig the black out and start to just work in some of the contrast, particularly on these stamens. I'm going to say stamens. I think that's what they're called.
I think you're right. If anyone knows differently, feel free to correct.
So contrast is needed in every drawing. Otherwise it can look a little flat. So with your black pencil, not terribly, I'm not really pressuring it, giving it too much pressure, but I am just making sure that where I see a shadow, if I think it needs to be darkened up a bit, then I will. But this is probably enough for that one. That one already looks much better. And this little dude here, I can just do that. We can see in here. And then on the underside of some of these can just be made a little bit darker too. A little bit in there. And that's almost it. Yeah, it doesn't need to go too much darker. So if we were, I think I'm coming to a 54, 6 minutes to go.
You're doing very well.
I think we can just probably skim through one more little leaf, possibly even get this entire one done so you can just watch me go again. There's definitely something going on here. So let's just wiggle through that. Am I using the right one? No, bright purple, that is correct. There, and there. Show you again the blender pen doing its amazing thing. So this one is slightly behind, so it's slightly darker. No straight edges in nature. Actually, I don't know if that's true. It feels like it should be true.
I don't know that one. Yes, I think that's generally considered true.
Oh, good. Thanks, team.
And what pencil did you use to outline at the start?
That was what, my line drawing?
Yes, your line drawing.
This little baby here, the Derwent Precision, and I have a 2H lead in there, so it's a very hard lead, and that is verging on idiocy, and I'd recommend an HB or a 2B lead for for drawing your outlines, because they're easier to erase and easier to you know, dab off with. Give that a little scrunch, but a 2H can indent the paper, and you know, you can sometimes accidentally create little lines like this, you know, in the paper with your graphite. So it's just basic graphite. One thing you can do instead of using graphite though, which is what I learned quite early on actually, which I didn't do here, which I probably should have now that I think about it, is actually use a colour pencil to do your lay down.
Oh yeah, of course.
Don't use a graphite, use a colour pencil, and use the colour pencil that you're actually, you know, going to be using. So I could have used this one, for example, or a Pro Colour variant. This is a Colour Soft one. I would have picked something harder. And I do that actually quite a lot.
So someone has just said spider webs and crystals, straight lines. Good one.
Oh yeah.
Yes, spider webs is a good one, isn't it?
Yeah, there, you got me there. Neither of those are florals though.
No, very true.
But, you know, to some degree you could say branches might be somewhat straight. Okay, so here let's go in. Pull that down, pull these up. Whoops. Clean that off. It's very useful to have a spare bit of paper. You can create lovely, almost watercolor effect with this. I'm such a fan. I think it's a really interesting way of working with colored pencils that's not really been highlighted much that I've noticed. Clean it off. I mean, you can do this with a paintbrush and other types of mineral spirits, but as I said before, you know, the smell of those is really quite obnoxious and not very pleasant at all. So I'm going to work on the slightly wet, because we're running out of time, but just going to add in, I'm not going to put any vein details in, but I am just going to darken up those edges to make them look like the edges, because they can get a little bit kind of fluffy or fuzzy. That's the word I was looking for, fuzzy. And that, I think, is about it.
Fabulous. I think what would be lovely is, that looks so good, if you compare your, I know you've got here's one I made earlier.
Yes.
I think it'd be lovely to show everyone what you then did.
Okie dokie. So as a quick little closer upper version of what I've done today, that's that there. And then in Blue Peter fashion, yeah, this is what I've done yesterday.
That is amazing. The background is so strong.
It makes such a difference.
I have to say, I know you held it up close. It doesn't look like a pencil drawing at all. It's amazing. It's incredible. You wouldn't know that, I don't think.
Well, that background, that has been done with these greens that are in the bundle, and the black, and that lovely lime green. And really all you have to do is put your lights in first, and you do not make any shapes that are square or you know, really too obvious. You just put them in wherever you feel like it, to be honest. And then you go in with other greens and you just keep adding color as rough as this. Honestly, this is all I did. But when you go over that pale, you just lighten it off a little bit so that you've got some kind of variation going on, and then cover those with more greens. And the more pigment you get down, the better it will be. But you can see this is properly rough, because I'm going to go over, you can see why my black is actually quite a lot shorter now, because all I'm doing, and this is why I've put this little bit of washi tape down, is I'm going to go in like this. I'm pressing quite hard, so I should probably have my pencil up a little bit. Otherwise it will be 3 for 3. Just doing that. And I'll just get the blender pen out, and then we can stop. But just to show you, I am pressing very hard. This is the Colour Soft, so be careful, because you don't want to keep on breaking your lead. But all you need then is your blender pen. Where's my little bit of, and you just go in with your blender pen, take a bit of the pigment off nice and gently around the edges. Go in around with the black first. You can see the amount of pigment that's on this blender pen now, and it's what it's doing is just moving all of that around. Give it a wipe. You see how grubby it gets. Keep wiping. And then with a little bit of tissue, while it's still a bit on the damp side, just take that off and then go back in. Now I needed to do, so that is layer 1, but then you go back, as I said, you go back over it and you just do it again until you get the colour combination that you're happy with. But once you've gone over with the blender pen, you can't erase. It's almost impossible to take the colour off to some degree.
And how long did it take you to finish this piece?
This one I did yesterday was 2.5 hours. So it was 1 hour to do those 3, and then working at about the same pace I was today, and then another 1.5 hours to do the rest of it. And the background probably took the longest because there's 2 layers on there. But the great thing is that once you've put that black down and use the blender pen, I mean, it will be pretty much like that for a long time. You can see the little black that's on the end of the pen now. But once you've put that down and it's dried, you can then go in with other greens on top to create additional kind of shapes. So,
and that's, you're doing that to get some layering and some depth,
yeah,
to the piece.
And those Colour Soft are great for working on top of things because they're nice and opaque and lovely and soft. So yeah, so that's it finished. Just using all of these supplies that we've looked at today in the bundle. So that's all of that. That was what was used to make that.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. Perhaps you'd like to hover on your finished piece, because I think that's a great bit of inspiration for everybody. Yeah, someone's just said it looks like an oil painting on the background. It really does. It looks incredible.
Yeah, that's the magic of those blender pens. They are just an absolute gift. I love them.
Thank you so much, Helen.
You're very welcome.
That was amazing. My evenings just got a bit damp and dark here, so I'm feeling quite spring-like now, having looked at this beautiful image for the last hour. That's fantastic. So thank you so much for showing us how to create that, and lots of people saying thank you in a very clear lesson and appreciating your comments and talking through as you're building your pictures there. It's really
You're
helpful.
very
Thank you
welcome.
so much. I also just have to point out the use of the word welly, as in give it some, loved it, and pinkify. So
Yeah.
everybody needs to go off and think about how to pinkify something in their lives. I just feel like that's something we can all carry with us for the next few days to brighten things up. That was marvellous, thank you. As ever, we would love to see everyone's creation. So I can tell by the fact that the chat suddenly went silent when you started, Helen, that lots of people were joining in. So we would love to see your creations if you've been following along with Helen this evening. So please be proud of what you've created and share them with us on social media. Or you can email them to us as well, help@cultpens.com. We've also got a hashtag on social media, which is cultpenscreative. So we would love to see your artwork. You can also share them with Helen. So if you search for Helen on Instagram, I think it's just Helen Carter Artist. Helen, there's nothing else anyone needs to search for.
No, Helen Carter Artist.
Great.
Keep it nice and simple.
Great. And I know Helen's got a website as well. So you can look up Helen Carter Artist and you'll find Helen's website too. So as I mentioned at the outset, we have recorded the session. So if you have missed anything, you will be able to see the recording in the next few days, and we'll share that across our newsletter and our social channels as we normally do. But I'll also send that directly to all of you who've registered as well. So you'll get that. So this is the end of our session for now. So I will be closing the webinar in a little bit, and I'll just hang on for a little bit longer. I'll just check through questions and make sure I've asked anything. So if anyone does have a last couple of questions, please do let me know. But thanks very much again, Helen, and I'm hoping Helen's going to be back next month. More on that to follow, but we do have some more workshops coming up, so please do check us out for those, and hope to see you all again. Have a great evening, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Helen.